Welcome to Deeply Disturbing Things.
The podcast.
I'm Macy,
And I'm Naomi.
and we are two anxious counselors who like to talk about deeply disturbing things.
Yay, let's dive in. Cheers.
Yay. Cheers. Cheers. I have a mac
L'chaim,
and cheese bowl.
skull.
This is like a really bad Zoom filter problem, I think. Like, this does not look great.
It makes
I
your
look
head look
yellow.
like it's throbbing. Look at that. You
Yeah, no,
see
it's
that?
kind
How
of
your
weird.
skull looks like it's
Can you not say skull?
your skull is like
I
it looks like there's something under your head that's gonna burst forth.
don't want to burst forth
It looks like an
nothing.
alien situation.
I don't like it.
Like there's baby aliens,
I don't
in
want to
there incubating and they're gonna burst forth from your skull.
stop. You just, okay, I hate all those words. Burst forth and
Hey,
skull.
it's your filter, not mine. I'm just observing.
I don't like it. I don't even think it's like I'm looking at the video
Do you
settings.
not
I'm
see
like,
your head?
I do. It's disturbing. What about this? Does this
It,
fix it? What is that? That's like just a whole different filter of horrible.
now it just makes your throbbing skull look ambient.
Now I just got smaller. I don't even know what that is. Adjust for low light. Is it that? Is that the problem? Gosh.
No, I think it's that you're going to have some alien babies burst forth from your skull. I think that's the problem.
I agree that's a
And
problem.
maybe the solution as well.
There we go.
Okay.
Better? More human?
No, just I think you have to keep your head in the dark place behind you and then it blends in. Just don't move ever. Okay, stop. Oh, now it's like flexing on the sides. See the
Oh,
babies
I
that
see what you're saying. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's
the
like a,
babies were gonna burst forth from the back of your skull, and now they've moved to the
oh,
sides.
well, that's worse. I hate this. Why is it doing this? Choose video filter. It's literally set to
You know
none.
what? I'll adapt
I
to
don't
it after a while and
I
not
don't
even
want alien
notice.
babies. I really don't. I can't. I don't have space for this in my life.
You don't want
Um,
alien babies to burst forth from your skull?
Not lately.
I mean, it looks like multiple pods in there too. Like this is not just one baby. This is, Octomom situation.
It's what?
Octomom?
Like that's an octopus.
You don't know about Octomom? Okay, we
No, is
had
this
this
another
discussion
reference you're
in the
making?
Patreon. Yes, there was a lady a while back that had eight babies, and the press named her
Oh,
I mean,
that's
eight
right. I
babies
remember
at
that.
one time, I should clarify.
You should clarify that. Yeah. Okay, well, I'll figure this out as we go, I guess. I don't know. I don't
Okay,
have
I just
time.
won't look at it.
Don't. Okay. Um, it bothers me too. It makes my face look really pink. All right, I'll fix this. I have to teach class tomorrow. I can't have eggs in my face.
Eggs bursting
Egg
forth from your
face.
head.
I mean, but why would eggs be? Wouldn't they be the babies that burst out, not the eggs?
No, not if they're in there in eggs.
Well, so I'm just like, there's just too many eggs. Is that the problem?
I mean, some creatures, incubate in eggs and some don't. I'm feeling like the ones in your skull are in eggs for
You just
some
feel that
reason.
way.
That's how I'm envisioning it.
Okay. I mean, thank you. Um, uh, okay. I tried.
It's all right.
I looked it up real quick and found nothing helpful.
It's okay.
Uh,
But I can't wait to send you some like vids of it later. I'll make some GIFs out of it for you.
I don't want to. Is it like, because,
It's
okay.
fine. Just
No, it's not.
pretend I never said anything.
Well, now I can't. Now I
I
can't.
mean, it is moderately to severely disturbing, but that's okay. Just proceed. That's our podcast. We're on brand.
Huh? Okay.
Go
Oh,
for it.
you want to see something weird though? Let's see if this does it. Okay. Watch this. Watch this. Okay. Look, watch my eyes.
What
Am
your
I
eyes
looking
gonna
down?
do?
Am I looking down?
Um, you're doing both. You're looking down and then looking up.
This is a setting on Zoom for eye contact. My eyes aren't like really where they're positioned here. It's like
Whoa, it makes you look like you're paying attention in meetings.
right.
Oh my
Yeah, so
God,
if
I
you
need
look
that
down,
in my
if
life.
you're looking at your phone or whatever, it still keeps your eye contact up. It keeps your gaze up.
Most of my meetings are via Teams, though. It probably doesn't have that.
It's a setting on actually it's not Zoom, it's on like my actual computer settings.
That is some crazy AI shit.
I know, and I'm like, I don't like that.
I don't like it either because that's
Freaks
why
me
I'm
out.
like, we need more in-person
There. So I
meetings
turned it
because
off and then my eyes kind of go normal again.
I want to know if people are actually engaged or not.
Well, and like in a room in front of somebody, I am allowed to look away from you. Don't get all freaky about it. Okay, but okay, background effects are
I get
off.
freaky about it. I'm like, I
Oh,
want
there
you
we go.
engaged.
I reset settings. Does that look better? Like a
Yeah,
normal?
you fixed it.
Okay,
Sort
cool.
of. Yeah, it's fixed. Just ignore my commentary.
Okay, from before, or
Your
are you
skull
lying?
is only pulsing a little bit now.
I don't understand this pulsing part. I mean, maybe my skull is pulsing. I don't know. Okay, are you ready? Are you ready
Yes,
for juice?
and I won't even mention that now your ears are pulsing.
What are you talking about?
Just
And
that
why would
ear, just this one on that side. It's don't worry about it. It's
are
just
you high? Are you
no,
high?
I do not partake.
What is happening
It's just
here?
technology.
Is it doing it now?
No,
Are you lying?
no, I
Okay.
don't see it happening now.
Okay. Because all I did now was just took off the blur.
Yeah, I think the blur was blurring your life. It
Oh,
was
what a week.
blurring my sense of
My life
reality.
is blurry. I have no sense of reality anymore. All right. Well, speaking about
All right, we better get into this.
unrelated things, I'm going to talk today about, as I just noticed, what is
What
heck?
are you going to talk about? I'm
I'm
interested.
going to talk about, you've made me too focused on myself. Um, I'm going to talk about the protests that have been going around on the college campuses. If you've
Oh,
been or have heard anything around that. So
of
specifically
course I have.
focused about the
I've been
campuses.
very worried about my son, and there was actually just a
Mm.
walkout 2 days ago on his campus. So we were texting the whole time so I could make sure that he was safe.
Which campus? This
Gonzaga,
is happening across 150, or sorry, not 50, like over 500 something campuses.
he goes to Gonzaga.
Gonzaga. Yeah. Well, tell him to be safe. Here we go. We're gonna dive
Yeah,
in now.
because the
So I
rise
did
in anti-Semitism is real.
correct. Yeah, I literally encountered that this week, and just surprising when you work in places where you don't see that as often. From my experience, a little shocking. I so this is from there's a lot of news reports around this. So when you get into current stuff around our topics, it does make it more challenging because it like comes in snippets and because things are
Right,
changing.
you're just giving like a snapshot of the moment in
Right.
time.
Right. So just I'm gonna give the caveat of I'm gonna talk about things as they are known now, which means that they could be wrong, they could change, it could be the perspective of the news media that's reporting it, and that hasn't been really like filtered potentially too. So just be aware of that. College campuses across the United States have just honestly erupted like my forehead did a minute ago with pro-Palestinian protests, and school administrators are really trying to like diffuse things, but it's not helping or hasn't really helped much. The tensions have gone up since the it's, October 7th attack, when militants, or since, is that Hamas? Is that Hamas?
Hamas, yeah.
Hamas. When militants killed 1,200 people and took more than 200 hostages. Israel's retaliatory assault on Gaza killed more than 34,000 people, according to its health ministry. So this was the event that precipitated. And reports of anti-Semitic acts have just surged across the US and particularly on campuses since October 7th. Islamophobia has gotten really bad as well. And there's been a big surge in protests, uh, which has created even more tension as they tend to do, forcing leadership to make or try to make decisions around things like free speech on campus and like what stance do universities what roles are universities supposed to take? Because I know like our there's if you're a university, it is supposed to be that place of advocacy and social justice. Like it's that place to make that stand for a lot of younger college age folks. Or, well, there's a lot of diversity now in age across campuses, so I retract that statement. Um,
It's also supposed to be a place of learning and safety for all students.
right, right.
And I think that's
Supposed to
when
be.
it crosses that boundary, it's crossing a line. And also, it should be
Mhm.
students involved, not professional agitators coming in.
Right, right, right. So the situation really escalated at Columbia University when the university's president, Namat Minouche Shafik, apologies, testified before a House committee about the school's response to charges of campus anti-Semitism. A pro-Palestinian protest kicked off the on campus or kicked off at the same time on campus. So, following her testimony, uh, Shafiq requested in a letter released by the university that New York City police remove people who were encamped on the south lawn of the campus who were in violation of the university's rules and policies and trespassing. More than 100 people were arrested, according to law enforcement. So, that encampment was organized by the Columbia University Apartheid Divest, CUAD, a student-led coalition of more than 100 organizations, which included Students for Justice in Palestine and Jewish Voice for Peace, to protest what they described as the university's continued financial investment in corporations that profit from Israeli apartheid, genocide, and military occupation of Palestine. Um, so it was a student-led group, which was interesting to me that the campus would move straight to having them like removed by law enforcement. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I feel like I didn't really look into that one that much.
Not
I know
very
one
familiar.
of the things I just caught a few snippets that there was a security guard held hostage in one of the situations, but I don't remember what college that was.
Yeah, yeah, and as I say, I'm not sure either. It might come up in one of my other threads here,
I
but
mean, I've seen
um,
like Columbia, USC, and UCLA have been like the main ones that I've kind of been looking at some news on,
mhm,
so I don't know which one that was reported to be the case. But I mean, if
right,
we're holding hostages, that's not a peaceful
not okay.
protest.
Yeah, and I don't think that in that instance that is what it was. There was a pro-Palestinian encampment that has set up at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Emerson College, the University of Texas, Austin, University of Michigan, University of California, Berkeley. And then on Wednesday, police arrested nearly 100 protesters at the University of Southern California after a dispersal order. Yale University police arrested at least 45 protesters on Monday and charged them with criminal trespassing after they refused orders to leave. There's still dozens of them there. Harvard University closed Harvard Yard, and officials at the school suspended a pro-Palestinian student organization for allegedly violating school policies. Meanwhile, 9 people were arrested Tuesday at the University of Minnesota's Twin City campus after they formed an encampment that went against school policy. Students, faculty, and staff at the University of New Mexico peacefully protested Monday in support of Gaza, the university said in its statement Tuesday. More than 100 people were arrested Wednesday at Emerson College in Boston during a pro-Palestinian protest, according to Boston State Department. So It's a lot of people getting arrested. So what do they want? Pro-Palestinian protesters at Columbia said they won't disperse until the schools agree to cut ties with Israeli academic institutions and commit to a complete divestment of its funds from entities connected to Israel, among other demands. Protests at other campuses are making similar demands to that. Some of them also include companies that universities contract with, including the selling of weapons, construction equipment, and technology that are services that are specifically tied with Israel. Columbia officials warned earlier this week that the encampment violates school rules, but did not provide specific disciplinary consequences. They gave pushback that the school, so there was protesters were saying that the school threatened it would bring the National Guard in to help address it. The school said that's wasn't the case. So it seems like there's like a lot happening and that kind of background piece of the, well, what do we want and like what do the schools do about that is kind of where I get lost, honestly. And I think a lot of people watching get lost, like kind of the intent and purpose and what actually happens. Have
I
you ever
mean,
seen a
sometimes
protest or
just
been part
making
of it?
some noise, could be the intent and purpose. And we kind of talked about that with like the ruining of the artwork to prove a point about the environment. Like
Right,
you're
right,
making noise, but is your action really aligned with your intent and purpose? No, it's pretty divergent from that.
right,
Throwing
right.
oil on a famous work of art is not related to the
To,
environment directly, but you're making some noise, you're getting some attention. So, I
So
mean,
it could be more about the messaging, whether or not it
yeah,
ever
getting on the
happens.
news, getting your message out there.
hmm Because if you're not part of the mainstream message, then you have to be louder in theory.
But a lot of this
That's
just
where it
depends
gets
on like you turn on a different news source with a different bias, and you're going to get a different spin on this.
right, right, absolutely.
So I
Um,
always say get your news from very diverse sources, and then you decide.
mhm. Well, and ultimately that like you decide part, it's kind of that, well, you decide what,
You decide
depending
what you
on,
think, like, because people like to
right.
take sides. This is the era of taking sides.
Well, and
Are
that's what I think
you team
where
vampire or team werewolf? It's like everyone's taking a
and
side.
it
That's where
seems
we're at.
so it is really complicated, like the actual situation that's
People
happening.
don't give
And
a shit about nuances, Macy. People, this is the most polarizing period that we've ever lived in.
right.
Like everything is a divide. Like every time you see a headline, I mean, it could be something stupid, like somebody got a new haircut. The internet
Doesn't
is
anyone that want to
divided.
actually understand
Like nobody
what's
gives a
happening?
shit about that, about somebody's new haircut. But that's like everything that's
I
put
love
out
your
there
new
is
hair
like,
color though.
you got to decide. Well, it's wild orchid. It's pretty bomb.
Pretty bomb. I mean, vote now, yes, no. Pick your side.
Yeah, and like the world, that's not what the world is. I mean, that's why I often like don't like come up with like, oh, this is what I think, because I know there's so much that I don't know. That's the history and the background and behind the scenes that I think it would be very
Mhm.
premature for me in a lot of complex situations to just be like, this is what we should do and this is what I think. Like with unhoused people, for example, it's a very complex. Like there's a lot involved. I can't just come out and say, well, this is the solution because it's going to be short-sighted and it's going to be
It's
oversimplified.
and different for every community, and yeah, it's
Yeah, I just
complicated.
had to review one of our interns like papers on what we should do with the homeless situation in Spokane. And
hmm
that was one of my critiques on it was I think you need to get more feedback from multiple stakeholders, not just this or
hmm
that. You
Right.
gotta get all the input that because you're not going to be able to make any kind of decision if you don't have the actual information.
I think when
But
I so
yeah,
I was
are
just
you
gonna say
team
with
Jacob or team what was his
Edward,
name? Edward?
probably
Yeah,
Edward,
Edward.
Edward,
Did you read
Edward. I
those
don't know.
books?
I did. I did. Yeah. I really like the books actually. I never watched the movies for a
They
while
were
because
not good.
they were not good. I had a big problem with the glittering. I actually read the books and I shamefully for a long time wouldn't admit that, but
I
I
read the
did
books too. I will admit it
like
here and now. Look at us being brave.
they are good. They are well written
I
books.
love a young adult novel. I'll be
Yeah,
honest.
they have some good flow. They know how to speak to like sometimes when people think they're writing to adults, it is written above what they would even want to read. Like this isn't about trying to speak to whatever. We're off
Like,
topic
get to the
by far.
story. Well, you didn't answer. We're still on topic.
I said I
Team
did. I said
Edward.
Edward. I said
Oh, you were
Edward.
Team Edward. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was
Yeah, I don't know.
too.
There's just some weird things about the Team Jacob thing that I just don't understand, honestly.
Yeah, it did get weird towards the end, didn't it?
Things get weird that I can't. I if things went a
Are we
different way,
talking about
maybe.
imprinting? Because, yeah,
Yeah,
that was weird.
imprinting is like a weird concept to me. I have a problem with it too in Avatar. The like blue tails touching thing that weirds me out.
All right, I was Team Edward too. So
Okay, okay, all right. We can still be friends.
we've cleared the air.
We are the tourists, so makes sense that everything's the same for us. It's
But was
weird.
that kind of the first, like, what side are you on? Like, kind of mainstream media sort of thing that was out there that was like
I mean,
polarizing?
I
And people were
doubt
pushed
it.
into choosing, like, why can't you like both or neither, you
It
know?
was like there was a lot of guilt associated. Like you have to pick, and I'm like,
Yeah, you
I
have
haven't seen
to.
the movies.
That might have been groundbreaking for that. And we're still seeing the repercussions today with like
Yeah, like if you see it on
Biden
a
or Trump. Like, what if I don't want either choice? Like, what are my options there?
well, and you're right, it is relevant because this is what, yeah, that literally is
Yeah, it's like
what,
you have to choose a side. It's like, well, maybe I'm
well,
not going to.
and then you feel like kind of locked up because you're like, I don't know enough to say something, and what if I say something that is wrong? What if is there a wrong answer?
And then you're portrayed as maybe not caring because you aren't being strong on one side or the other. But I think there's so many more complexities and we can't simplify these things.
And
And
I'll
I'm
share
always
your
hesitant without all the information to take a strong stand on anything,
question, everything.
unless it's
What's the
something personal. And then I will take a strong stand with no information. It'll be completely emotional.
first? Trust your gut and then question your gut and then ask someone else. And
I make the
then
rules, I break the rules.
I swear I just said that today.
Oh my
Is
God,
that
did you
to
say
you?
that today? Not
Who
to
did
me.
I say to? They didn't really make the rule. I did. Who did I
Are
say
we
that?
sharing
Oh, I
sharing the
said that
same
in a
brain?
client. I said that to a client today
Oh my
because I was
God.
talking about because I had set up the whole system with our new EHR and they were like, "Oh, do you have a tech team?" I'm like, "No, no, no. I set it up and you know, I make it so I can break it."
It's
Weird.
that's it.
All
Yeah.
right, here we go. So Mike Johnson, the House Speaker, called on Columbia University's president to resign during their news conference, where the crowd repeatedly interrupted the speaker and at times loudly booed him and the other GOP lawmakers who uh, were with him. And they stood at the microphone, or they were like up with him at the microphones on the campus. Quote from Johnson: "We just can't allow this kind of hatred and anti-Semitism to flourish on our campuses, and it must be stopped in its tracks. Those who are perpetrating this violence should be arrested. I'm here today joining my colleagues and calling on President Shafik to resign if she cannot immediately bring order to this chaos." He was joined by New York reps Mike Loyler, Nicole Malliotakis, and other GOP delegations. They condemned the way the administrators have handled the issue on behalf of student protesters. Comment came a day after the fellow New York Democrat, uh, Representative Bowman, accused Columbia of caving to right-wing pressure. Earlier this week, a spokesperson for President Joe Biden said he was, quote, of course, aware of pro-Palestinian protests. So it's just so I just, it's so laissez-faire about that, which makes me,
I'm gonna
but
start using that at work. I'm
of
aware.
course,
I'll just
I'm
say
aware.
that. I'm aware.
I'm aware. I'm aware. Like, talk about a way to piss someone off. I'm aware.
I'm aware,
Cool,
yeah. And
man. And
I'm gonna
yeah,
try it just once though, just to see what the reaction is.
I literally this week had my dad was like a little worried about me in relation to my job, and I I was like, it's kind of like being a firefighter. Like I don't want to run into the fire. I really don't. Instincts say don't. And I know that like I could get hurt by doing said actions. Like there's risk involved in our job on some level because we can't control other people. But like you have to do it anyways.
You
Like
have
there's
to.
just you have to just have to do it. So from there, uh they say they're urgently working on it. They want to rebuild their bonds with the students. So a lot of this is the college campuses are trying to maintain because the students are their funding as well as getting money externally from other sources,
Hmm.
which may align with political whatevers.
And higher
So,
education is already dealing with low enrollment. So I
right,
think they're really trying to hold on to the students they have.
right. They're trying to really keep students and keep it from, I guess, exploding out of their foreheads and getting out of control. Yeah, it's never expected when that happens.
Good
But
callback to the alien eggs in your skull.
yes, I like to reference back to that initial part. So, there was a lot of police clashes with these protests. The whole thing that I was just going to read literally just disappeared. But I was looking at it and it's okay, one second.
Take your time.
I'm trying to get
We've
out of
got all
the
day.
well, so again, this is a lot of like I have a lot of like news article stuff together and it's so much in the moment stuff that's like again find the contexty stuff
Yeah, I
is
mean, it's happening right now. So,
so let's see here. The next part I was going to share is that oh yeah, so at Princeton there was a hunger strike that started as well. They want to call attention to the suffering of people in Gaza and they demand the university divest from companies tied to Israel
hunger
military camps.
strikes. Now, that's an interesting concept.
I know, right? Well, it's like the
Like,
catching
how
yourself
does
on
that
fire
end?
thing.
You get hauled
Hung
away and
hungry.
hooked up to a feeding tube. That's how that's going to end.
Well, and you have to slowly, so that would be the hardest part is slowly eating again. Because you got
I
to
mean,
eat a
in our
bunch.
country, you're not allowed to kill yourself. It's illegal. So, you know, police can take action to save you from yourself,
Mm-hmm.
which is, that's a topic for another day.
I was gonna say that is a whole nother topic. So they said that basically they were outraged by Israel actions to block food, fuel, clean water, and electricity into the Gaza Strip, where 30 people have died from dehydration and malnutrition. So that was their reason of the hunger strike aspect. Um, and the university and the university's refusal to adhere to what they were requesting. So again, I agree with you. I think it is very much having the voice heard. Because like, yeah, is it realistic for some of these universities? I don't know how much funding. I bet you I could find it. How much funding like what is the amount or like is it a thing?
I don't know.
See that's
That'd
like
be
the
a good
question.
fact to have.
Right.
And I
How
think
much
that
I'm
would
gonna find
lead,
it right
like, give those requests more power if it was like, hey, this is the amount
now. Right.
that the country of Israel is contributing to our university.
Right. Correct. Like and that's okay, here we
Like,
go.
yeah,
I have some
I'm curious to know.
information. Here we go. According to an education department database, there is, and so this is from, I just want to see where I'll come back to where I'm getting this from here. Okay, so the about 100 colleges in the US have reported gifts or contracts from Israel totaling $375 million over the past two decades. The data tells little about where the money comes from, however, or how it's used. this is the right question to search for and why it's been hard. Because when you look up the campuses and the rights or the just the topic itself,
Mhm.
it's so like you're getting such a linear view of what they're reporting.
You got to get to the facts.
But you have to know the question to know what you're
You
like.
got to know
You
the
have to,
questions to ask.
yeah, yeah. So MIT said in a statement that the protesters have the full attention of leadership, blah, 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 blah. So this whole divestment thing, which is the word I've seen throughout all of these, is that the U.S. Education Department requires colleges to report gifts and contracts from foreign sources, but there have been problems with underreporting, and colleges sometimes dodge reporting requirements by steering money through separate foundations that work on their behalf. That's shady, and I don't like that.
Well, and I'm sure that's not just Israel, that's probably a lot of
Every
countries.
everything, right? According to an education, so that's part I just saw, and then
So that
let's
amount divided by all the universities, that's really not a big amount.
no, no, and I was going to say, I mean, in over a decade, it said, right? So
Yeah.
some students at MIT have published the names of several researchers who accept money from Israel's defense ministry for projects that the students say could help with drone navigation and missile projection. They've accepted MIT's accepted more than $11 million from the defense ministry in the past decade. But again, in terms of university funding, that's pretty small drip in the bucket
Mhm.
over a decade.
Yeah.
But again, it's on the surface that just that label of it is going to be picked up on before you get into the details.
You got to look
Um,
at the details. That's where the devil is. Another saying
it's a day for sayings. The
it
devil's in the
is.
details.
If you're our
Um,
Patreon, you'll know that we went through a lot of sayings earlier.
Dan, we did.
And I'm waiting to unleash my new saying that I heard this week that I've just held in my
I'm
pocket
so
pocket
excited.
and I'm waiting for the right time.
Motivated by the Columbia protest, students at the University of Michigan were camping out at the plaza and demanding the same thing, saying their school sends more than $6 billion to investment managers who profit from Israel. They also cited investments in companies that produce drones,
Well,
warplanes,
that money amount
things
doesn't
like that.
align with the money amount you just reported, though.
No, because this literally said that this was, students reported this.
Yeah.
So we know
But
how good
nobody
students
did
are.
pass the headlines. I mean, I
Mhm.
don't sometimes either, but I know
Well,
that
I
I
didn't
don't.
even, yeah.
When I
I
don't, I don't like spew that. I'll
Right.
say, hey, I read a headline. I didn't dive into it. I'll
Well, and that's where
acknowledge
like
that.
even doing this topic, like I have all the information that I have, but I didn't really know until like reading it out loud, like where gaps are until
Hmm.
you have a intellectual, calm conversation about it. And then you can say, oh, how do you know that? I don't know that.
Yeah.
Um, and being okay with saying that you don't know. Like it's okay, people. It's okay that you don't know. It's
Yeah,
fine.
I'd say, hey, I want to look into that. I'm going to look into my diverse sources and figure out where to go next.
Yeah, and then you do that too, and we'll get back to each other. So let's see here. This said that University of Michigan officials said that they have no direct investments with Israeli companies, and that indirect investments made through fund amounts are a fraction of 1% of the university's $18 billion endowment. The school rejected calls for divestment, citing a nearly 20-year-old policy that, quote, shields the university investments from political pressures. Right. Um, so a lot of this is like it kind of ends there for most of these. Is okay, well then what next? Basically, if these
Yeah,
facts and numbers aren't credible in the first place, not saying that it's not there, but it's maybe not accurate to the point where it's being used as a leverage point, basically to a platform
yeah.
for
So say
a
universities
purpose.
say no, then the
Hmm.
students can choose to drop out, and not go there, I guess, right? That's
Right.
their option, that's their prerogative.
So NPR says uh, that when protesters want this what's it called? Divestment.
I love how these new words come into our
No, I've
zeitgeist
never
all the
even
time.
heard it.
Like there's words that we've never heard of, and suddenly we're using it all the time. We're
I
banting it
love
about.
I love this NPR article. Hold on, let me see. I want to give credit here to whoever by Raphael Nam. This was on April 30th that this was posted. So it kind of gives like the quick little snippets about what's happening. And then it says, here's a look at what divestment means.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you. Why there's a call for divestment. So uh wait a minute. Here's a look at what divestment means. Why there's a call. Okay, why there's a call for divestments isn't necessarily the same as what it
Defining the
is.
word. Yeah.
Okay, well, hold on.
Maybe you
They think we're
gave
smarter than
Raphael a
we
shout
are.
out prematurely.
You're right, I did. And
We can walk that back.
I'm going to walk that back just for a second. So I want to say the definition that I'd like to give credit to is now, um, this is coming from Wikipedia. Divestment involves a company selling off a portion of its assets, often to improve company value and obtain higher efficiency. Common reasons for divestments include eliminating non-performing businesses, focusing on corporations, obtaining funds, enhancing stability. Thanks.
Good old Wikipedia.
Yep. Okay. So why do this? Protests against university investments have been a longstanding thing in history. 1970s, 1980s. Students at Columbia and other universities successfully pressed administrators to sell off investments in companies doing business in South Africa over their apartheid policies. Since 2010, students have successfully called for some universities to divest themselves from companies tied to fossil fuels or to freeze their investments in sectors including the Syracuse University. So there has been success in this in the past then
I have some
for
thoughts.
certain
You
things.
finish your thought first.
That actually I'm gonna the next part is do they work? So I'll pause so you can the answer is no, not really. But go ahead.
I mean, as you're talking, I'm thinking, okay, like, what is the point the protesters are trying to make, right?
Right,
Like, they want what? They want Israel to stop this action that they're doing against Palestine, right?
right.
The universities have really no political power. They're not a
Well,
political powerhouse.
but they're saying that by purchasing or having money funded, that they're somehow assisting. But
But
like,
the amount you mentioned is not really a
well,
big
and that's them
amount.
giving money to the university.
And universities are
Like,
already struggling, like I mentioned. So you're like
I'm just saying
kicking the dog when it's down.
if people don't, if there's people I don't like and they want to give me their money, I'm okay with that, actually.
I have little principles
I
around.
don't even see that as a principal issue. I'll take your money. Like,
No, I
you're
mean
taking
um
I don't see
I took
the
my
logic, but
first car from my stepdad who was abusive to me. I was like, yeah,
yeah.
freaking
I mean, this is
car.
literally divorce
I
court,
just
right?
don't
Like
have those kind of principles.
it's
I'm
not
gonna take the
I
car.
just argue that it's not a principal thing. Like we have courts that uphold like property laws and it's I'm mad at you and now this is mine.
I just don't think the universities really have a say in
No,
war
no, they
stuff, like a direct
so
say. So I think your efforts are going to be more powerful, like go protest
I
at the
mean,
White
that's
House
basically what
or
this says is it has more to do with the symbolic victory for protesters than it does in any corporate behavior changes or
okay,
universities.
so that goes back to just like getting attention for it.
Most analysts agree that divestments don't usually punish the companies targeted, and some analysts argue divestments actually are worse in the long run. By staying invested, the reasoning goes that universities can have more of a say about the operations, basically because they're, if they
Part of
are
it.
involved,
Yeah.
right? Um, Selling off investments would likely to be scooped up by other investors who might be less likely to speak up. So it's a, lesser
Yeah.
evil sort of thing. Lesser evil, that's another saying.
Lesser evil.
The University of California said that it was opposed to calls for boycotts against the divestments from Israel. They said, while the university affirms the right of our community members to express diverse viewpoints, a boycott of this sort impinges on the academic freedom of our students and faculty and the unfettering exchange of ideas on our campuses.
Okay, that's a
So
word that is
unfettered.
interesting, unfettering. Yeah, that's one of those words that gives me a very strong visual all the time.
What do you visualize?
And
Now
not
I'm gonna
not always good things.
unfettering.
It's like I feel like it's a
What
very
is it?
vigorous unrolling and then flapping of something.
It's unrestrained and uninhibited.
I feel like you're unrolling it and then shaking it
Okay,
around.
so this
Which,
fettered
depending on what it
it's
is,
fetter.
do you want to be
Yeah,
shaking it or
weird. I
unrolling
don't
it?
like it. It's
Maybe you want to
because
be fettered.
the main word, yeah, fetter is a word which is weird and I don't like it. Which means to restrain with chains, typically around the ankles.
Yeah, so why are we throwing around unfettered like it's, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like saying deadline, remember?
Oh
That
yeah.
that topic?
Like
Yeah.
look at the etymology. I don't know. It's a word that I've always been like, what are we saying here? I don't
Words
know.
matter. Words matter.
Words
Um,
matter. Thank you.
what we say has an impact.
Oh my gosh,
Okay.
yes. Anything you say is a spell. That's what I think. Our words have magic. What you say can change how somebody feels. It can create action. That's magic. That's the
This
power
is
of
a
words.
powerful. Oh my gosh. Are we, is this the start of the cult happening right now?
This is
That's the
it.
message. That's it. Wow.
Yes.
Ah,
Oh my
lesson
gosh,
101.
yes.
It is. Words are magic.
They are. I mean, what you say or don't say to somebody has such an impact. That's magic. I mean, magic is
And it's
creating
often what
change,
you
right?
don't say that has been a big impact on me lately is the things I don't say and how that influences other people, like what you
Yes.
choose not to respond
And
to.
isn't that magic? Influencing other people, creating
It
change, making
is.
people feel a different way. That's magic.
And people do it all the time. People, it's everyday magic.
It's everyday magic, but most people aren't aware of it and don't take it
It's,
seriously and just
it
spout out
is
of the mouth.
like Harry Potter in that way. Like there is just another realm of it happening all the time and you're just not aware.
Okay, we're
Yeah.
we're doing
I think-
this.
All right. Whatever this is, we are
Alethea 2.0.
Alethea, 2 point launch 5 years later. We've been doing this a long time, by the way, from the day that we just sat down and we are like, whatever. If nobody listens, who cares?
It's
We're
been
just gonna
like
still
five and
meet
a
up
half
and do
years.
this.
So
I know.
uh,
And we're still just doing it like for you and I. Like I don't go and like um I don't like I have it's nice that people listen. I hope that people enjoy it, but I really this may sound bad, but I really don't care. Like I come to talk to you and I enjoy talking to you.
and I look up things that I'm truly interested in. Like
Hey,
we
we
use
get
the
to like
podcast as an
dive
opportunity to be
get to
like
divert our funds.
dive dive into it. Um, Nobody's really
Oh,
divested in us at this point, so we don't have to worry about protests.
no, I like the fact that we're independently sourced. Okay. All
So
right.
invested is the opposite of divested.
Right. Yep.
Okay. Nobody is invested in us, so we
Well, yeah, our Patreons are invested in
we
us.
have our 9 Patreons. I'm not trying to minimize your contribution. That's important, but
Hmm.
also it's not really paying for our essential needs yet. Yet. Growth mindset.
Yes. It's it has more to do with let me backtrack, right? Like a VCR rewind. Okay. I actually bought a bunch of VHSs
I
because
love
I'm
VHSs.
gonna, I'm gonna go and take the VHS player I grew up with at my dad's house, and I still have two drawers of my old Disney movies, and I want to like set it up. Um, let's see here. So, but because so it got spurred on. I don't that's weird. By I had the Disney account and it expired and I got angry and I was like, I have like half these movies that they show on here. And I have them and I
Yeah, I
have to
mean the
pay for them.
quality may not be there, but is that
I
the
don't
point?
care. No, I didn't
Exactly.
care as a kid, and
I
actually,
can't
we're
tell the
mentioning
difference between HD and non-HD.
no, and that's why I want to watch it on a VHS player because I think it's like your video camera there. It's all part of it. Like it needs to be come in at the level that it went out at.
Come on in
Yeah, and then get out.
and out.
It's it's more the stigma. I'm just completely backtracking. It's more the stigma created and drawing attention to the issues broadly. That
I'm
is
glad
the
you said
intent.
that because at first I was like, is there a VHS stigma I'm not aware of?
I mean,
Like, is it yet another thing I have to hide? Jesus.
no, no, it's not no, what I'm doing is not cool or trendy, and I've seen nobody else do it. So it is not, this is purely just my own tangent on life, is to
No, I
do
love
VHS.
VHS. I have several. Disney especially. I have a lot of Disney
Mhm.
ones.
Yeah, I have some of the like old cartoon ones, like the where it's like a combination of like Popeye and things like that. Okay, let's see here. Last things.
If you
Can
get the
universities,
original Little Mermaid on VHS, it has a ween in the animation that they took out
oh,
later.
I could do
So
that might not actually be one that was one of my favorites. There's definitely like Lion King, Fantasia I have on VHS. I can't wait. I'm so
I
excited to
love
watch my Fantasia.
Fantasia.
That's so good. So
It
good.
is.
That was like a really
I have that older than
entrancing.
VHS. I have that on album, like vinyl.
Wow. Okay, so can universities actually do this request anyways? So yes, but it's complicated. Uh, they have like this. So this might actually make a lot of sense for you based on experiences with work, but like a lot of this money goes into buckets and that are allocated for certain things. And this bucket gets very complicated for where it's going over the years. And it can become this like very twisty, like it may have started over here, but now it's like way over here for its own
Mm,
justified reasons.
a
And
twisty
how do
bucket.
you, yeah, and how do you untie the justification for this because of this if it does have, its own validity 5 years later for how it's being used? With the
Yeah, yeah.
university? What if it negatively impacts you because of that? Like, what if that money is being used to help fund upgrades at your dorm, and
Yeah.
that was approved, and you were all for that, and now you don't get that, and now the water tanks go out, and you don't have fresh water in your dorm. Like, okay,
Yeah, and you agreed to that because you wanted this one part of it to be
right,
a thing. Yeah, that's
right,
like bills, like where they throw the pork on. And they're
right. Wait,
like,
what?
yeah, we'll
Sorry,
approve
I said
the
yeah before I understood, and then my brain went, wait, what?
yeah, well that's what they call it, like the fat that they throw it on.
Oh, another saying. Throw the
Yeah, it's like a governmenty thing. So
How does
like
that happen
people will
so
be
much
like,
time?
yeah, we'll approve that, but you got to put on this and this and this, and that's like the fat. And
Oh, okay.
so in order to get the thing you wanted passed, you have to agree to like these other
Right,
things that you may not be on board with, but you're
right.
like, greater good.
hmm
It's
Which,
hard.
when universities are taking money in, it is often under the assumption for the greater good of education for the students.
And that's why we need to move away from this idea that everything is freaking black and white and needs to be polarized. Like the world is actually gray in most cases, and you need
Mhm.
to embrace the complexity of things. I think that is a sign of being more enlightened, to be honest, to embrace
Right.
that complexity and like look at the nuances and don't be so quick to react
Well,
and make sure you're understanding everything and considering it before you come forward and saying, hey, this is what I think and this is what should happen.
and to not allow it to be a general sticker because just because something um, you know, came from an Israeli source doesn't mean it is the same thing as supporting Israeli militant groups. Like there's,
And it's
or if
definitely not
someone,
the same thing as attacking Jewish students on your campus.
right, like so these generalizations that are harmful or could be harmful or could be used to harm people, they do do your research and make sure that you
Right.
know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And to shift gears super quick, I know this is a tangent, but a lot of that, the right wing rhetoric of trans hate,
Yes.
it's propagandized and it's fed, and then we have people that believe that and then initiate hate acts on transgender people
Right. Well, not
because
there was
yeah,
a there was an incident around that, I believe in Spokane fairly recently where something bad happened and it was wrong. That person did a wrong thing. And then it's just kind of like to be aware of like this is going to be used against the whole of people
right,
and targeting versus individually this occurred and it has nothing to do with the whole of people.
right, yeah. It's those
Yeah.
nuances. You got to take them into consideration.
But when you get angry and you're emotional and which is what, war does to people, it makes you scared. Um, the last thing I was going to just add on here is that endowments. So when money comes into the universities, it's intended to like preserve and grow resources available to colleges and universities. The number one use of those funds is to support students and student financial aid. So that is one of the biggest uses of that money. So it's a complex situation, and asking to change how money is coming in to the
Mm,
university is and will directly impact students. And most of the money that comes in is invested by students and other interested parties that are actually invested in the students themselves. So, like, it goes back to the students. Like universities, again, and I don't want to speak too broadly here, or I don't know. There may be, like it said, like the back funneling of funds and things like that, but a lot of that's